ever fantasized about worshiping a interstellar octopus, but you just haven't found the opportunity yet? Well, today might be your lucky day because Cosmoctopus from Lucky Duck Games is sort of trying to help you roleplay that fantasy, at least through resource management, engine building, and such. In Cosmoctopus, you and other devotees are racing for the favor of the great Inky one. You're doing your best to try to collect 8 tentacles before the other player. Once 8 tentacles have been collected, the game is over and you win. Henry Audubon designed the wonderful game in Parks. In fact, it was one of my very early gateway games. When I came across this really weird theme and then I saw that Henry was the designer, I had to try it out. So what do you need to know about this game? A turn in Cosmoctopus is actually really simple. You first start off by moving the Cosmoctopus to an adjacent tile. You can pay a card to move the Great Inky one extra step in order to try to get that perfect tile's benefit. And once you've moved them, you take that benefit and play a card if you're able to. Then you turn the gaze of the Great Inky one towards the next player and play continues around until somebody gains 8 tentacles. That's really it. As I said, the overarching goal is to collect tentacles. You do that by moving the Great Inky one around on a variable setup of tiles. You basically move to gain resources and extra cards. And resources are the lifeblood of this game. They are exactly what you need to get in order to get tentacles and play cards and do lots of cool stuff in the game. There's 4 different resources: Ink, Whisper, Coin, and Star. They nest with card types, which are Scripture, Hallucination, Relic, and Constellation. One major use for these resources, if you can collect enough, 13 actually, you can collect one of 4 Forbidden Knowledge tokens. These tokens are super powerful in that they give you 2 tentacles at one time, but it's not going to be easy to get there. The other use for resources is to play cards. Cards are what make this game fun. They are how you gain an advantage over another player. It's not just about moving the Great Inky one around the tiles and collecting resources. That would be super boring. You have to be able to break the game, and the cards help you do that. The hallucination cards allow you to play them for a one-time, super powerful effect. These hallucination cards allow you to get really big sums of resources all at once. They'll allow you to gain extra cards, play cards for free, even get a tentacle. The Black Scripture cards allow you to get a discount on future played cards. Getting these out early and often is likely the key to kind of really building up that engine and being able to play big cards later on. The yellow relic cards give you ongoing benefits. They basically will trigger on certain actions. So for example, if you were to gain one type of resource, you could gain an extra resource. They'll trigger when you gain tentacles to give you extra resources or cards. There's a lot of different things that happen with these cards. One is they also help you to fill up the constellation cards. So constellation cards are a key component of this game. So you pay to play them, but they don't have any effect at that point. There's a constellation of resources that you actually have to fill up on that card in order to trigger their benefits. And the tricky part is you can't fill them with resources you've previously gathered. So it has to be new resources that you are acquiring, and they go directly on the card. When they do, all of these cards will give you a tentacle as a benefit, but there's also a secondary benefit like extra resources or move Cosmoctopus to another tile and gain the benefit. So we've went over all the cards, and now we've actually mentioned all of the ways you can get tentacles. As a reminder, you can get tentacles using Forbidden Knowledge tokens, playing hallucination cards, and filling up these constellation cards. So let's jump into where's the fun, the key mechanisms that'll kind of keep you coming back. And I thought pretty long and hard about this one. There is a really simplistic rule that has pretty broad consequences on how you play the game. And it's the simple fact that you can't carry over more than 8 resources of any type to your next turn. Why that's important are with the Forbidden Knowledge tokens, it takes 13 of these resources in order to acquire them and get that double tentacle giant bonus. So that means you can only carry an 8 and you have to find a way to gain 5 on a given turn. And if you gain 4 and aren't able to use them, you lose them. That turns this game from a simple resource collection and spending game to a much more strategic action if you're trying to get that double tentacle bonus. If I had played the Scripture card and have a 2 resource discount, plus I also move Cosmoctopus to a tile that gives me 3 of the inks, then I get the 13. So I have to happen to be next to a tile in which I move Cosmoctopus to get to those 3 inks, or I have to pay cards to get there. So that's hand management right there. And I had to already have thought ahead and played a scripture card. Another option is I could have played one of those really powerful hallucination cards where you get 8 of one resource. So going into the turn, I would have need to have had 5 already. Another option is you could have had the max 8 going into a turn, but then also move Cosmoctopus to a space in order to complete a constellation that happens to give you 5 more of that resource. Then you have the 13 to be able to go and get that forbidden knowledge token. It's a lot. And I think it's really cool how, I explain the rules. The rules are you move Cosmoctopus and play a card. That's it. But in those examples I just gave, based upon the one rule of having a limited number of resources that carry on from turn to turn, creates a ton of friction in the game. And planning becomes even more difficult because there's other players moving Cosmoctopus. So you could have the best intentions to try to move it to the right spot to get the right resource to kind of trigger that chain, but the other players could totally ruin that for you. And if it's one space away, all you have to do is pay 1 card, but the card economy is super tight. So you don't always have a glut of cards sitting in your hand ready to pay to move Cosmoctopus more spots. So you can see there's not a ton of player interaction per se, but you can definitely have an impact on somebody else's game. And speaking of card economy, it is tight. There is a 3-card market that you're choosing cards from. And sometimes I felt like I wasn't building a strategy per se or an engine in the classic sense of the word. I was kind of dealing with the cards that are dealt or the cards that I have access to and playing the best possible strategy with what's in front of me. But the fun here is not in the building of that engine for me. That's not what this is. The fun is winning, right? The fun is being the best at dealing with what I'm dealt. And there is some variability there and a feeling of sometimes not being fully in control, which is totally fine. Just know that going in. I mean, I've had examples where I have the best laid plans out in order to collect the 13 stars needed to grab that forbidden knowledge token, only to find the player right in front of me takes it. And now I'm going to be stuck with 13 stars to spend and nothing really to spend it on. Hopefully there's a big constellation card sitting there in my hand that I can play and at least spend like 5 of them. But it's definitely can be disappointing when that plan comes crashing down on you. So you have to be taking into account what other players are collecting and are they going to beat you to that forbidden knowledge token. So a little bit about theme. It's sort of thinly veiled. It's a hand management, resource collecting game that does have a fun coat of paint, but that's about as far as it goes. I mean, the art is great and I love the plastic Cosmoctopus and the little plastic tentacles, but thematically, it is what it is. I will say, to me, it's a bit of marketing genius in that, frankly, the theme is what kind of piqued my interest. You could probably play this game with a lot of different themes slapped on it, but it was kind of that fun nature of worshiping a interstellar octopus god that got me into it. But I am staying for the simple yet highly strategic gameplay. And that's why I'm putting my stamp of approval on this. Cosmoctopus is definitely staying in my collection. It has a place as a entry plus game. Somebody that's played a couple different games before. I'm definitely bringing this to the table to kind of give them a look at a simple yet highly strategic game that's not about a long-term strategy. It's more about dealing with what is in front of you in the moment. And I think the theme, as thinly veiled as I think it is still a component to help somebody new get excited about kind of this modern board game experience. And lastly, there is a solo mode. If you want to see that, I have put up a gameplay there. You should see something up there to click on if that interests you. And that's it. That's my review. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. If you liked what you saw, maybe think about subscribing. Other than that, have a good day. I'm out.